Ladies and gentlemen, dear experts, welcome to Kolei CP's Training of Trainers course. This sequence is on assessing achievements and sessions. In this sequence, we're going to cover 3 points. 1, the different types of evaluation. 2, how to assess participants' satisfaction. And 3, how to assess prior learning and its assimilation into daily practice. The different types of evaluation. Evaluation means making a value judgment on the results of the training in order to compare them with the objectives. This judgment is made either during or at the end of the training. Evaluating also means examining how the training process established by the trainer was perceived by the participants. It is important to encourage participants to make value judgments. For example, on the training approach and methods, the different types of exercises, the support tools, and the logistical conditions. In concrete terms, evaluation is a way of measuring whether the contract established between the trainer and the participants has been fulfilled, and whether the conditions for implementation have been met. A qualitative assessment is essential. 4 factors determine the quality of the training system. 1, correct identification of the need and the participants. Answer to the right questions. Target population well chosen. 2, timeliness. Good timing in relation to the needs on the ground. 3, quality of training. This is with the relevancy of the goal and objectives, of the program, of the methods, of the duration, of the spread over time, of the choice of trainers, of the balance between theory and practice. 4, expected and achieved results. Are the participants, as well as the hierarchies, sensitive to the training issues? Are they convinced about the results obtained? Evaluation during training. During the various training sessions, the trainer must verify the knowledge acquired. Closed questions such as, "Do you understand me?" or "Is it clear to you?" are only relevant if participants answer no, which is uncommon. After a presentation, trainers should formulate open-ended questions such as, "Do you have questions of clarification and understanding?" Trainers can use different methods to assess comprehension during the training. Ask participants to express what they have retained. Have participants explain a specific point that has been conveyed. Test the knowledge acquired by proposing practical cases. Evaluation at the end of the training. Usually at the end of the training, you will need to evaluate different aspects on the spot by asking the participants about, for example, their views on the content, level of difficulty, on their relations with the trainer, on the practical organization, exercises, presentations, but also physical conditions, and on the usefulness of the training as a whole. This assessment can be done orally or in writing. Trainers should seek feedback from the participants on what they thought of the training, on what they liked or disliked. Post-training evaluation. Evaluation of the effectiveness of training activities takes place after the training. It can be broken down into 3 complementary and hierarchical levels. 1, evaluate effectiveness of the teaching method. This involves measuring whether the goals and objectives have been achieved and whether the targeted skills have been acquired. 2, evaluate communication and learning. The challenge is to assess whether the skills are being implemented in the field, in the daily practices of the staff within companies. 3, assess the impact. This measures whether the skills acquired do enable companies to evolve, to achieve the goals for change that the skills enhancement aims to achieve. Impact assessment requires, as a minimum, that the expected results on the ground are defined. The real impact of training activities on the goals for change can be isolated from other factors: reorganization of work, increase in financial resources, etc. To assess the effectiveness of the training activities, we need to integrate these three levels of evaluation and consider how they interact. 1. The analysis of sectorial needs in skills development makes it possible to set the goals for companies or organizations, that is, the expected effects on the ground, to which the training activities will contribute. 2. Training courses must therefore set objectives in terms of skills acquisition. The evaluation of relevance must assess whether these skills make it possible to contribute to the goal. If the objectives are not relevant, they will not make it possible to achieve the goal and to have the desired impact. 3. The training activities will help to achieve the learning objectives, the acquisition of skills by the participants. It is then necessary to evaluate whether or not the skills have been acquired. If the skills are not acquired, the desired goal and impacts will not be achieved. 4. An assessment of assimilation verifies whether the skills acquired are actually implemented in the workplace. This evaluation is essential. Skills that are not implemented will not enable the desired goal and impacts to be achieved. So, achievement of the specific goal of a training course, and more generally the impacts of the capacity building activities, is directly linked to the relevancy of the training objectives. The effectiveness of the training method, enabling the acquisition of skills, and the quality of the communication and assimilation of the skills acquired. How to assess participants' satisfaction? At the end of the training, trainers should seek feedback from the participants on what they thought of the training to assess their satisfaction. To avoid complacency, clear evaluation criteria are needed so that participants will remember the goals and express the results in relation to them, the expectations, and how the training measure up against them. The final evaluation of a training course may be based on the following: a description of the problems that participants have yet to solve on their own, the identification of barriers to implementation related to their environment. Criteria for assessing satisfaction. The evaluation of satisfaction is carried out on the basis of the following criteria. 1. General organization of the training. The interest of the topics discussed. Are they related to the needs of the participants? Do they allow participants to acquire the targeted skills? Logic of succession of sequences and content, that is progression, is also a key factor. Is there a common thread? Are the different activities coherent? Facilitation by the trainers. Quality of relations with the group. Facilitated participation. Methods used. Are they adapted to the content? Practical application. Adaptation of content. Is it relevant to the context? Accessible to participants. Relationships with the volume of the content and the course duration. Dissatisfaction may come from there being too much content for a time is considered too short. Almost always the answer will be, it will have taken more time. When participants cover a lot of work, they may be stressed by the timing, reinforcing this sense of urgency. 2. Logistics. The rooms. Are they adapted to the methods used? Sufficiently large? The schedule. Adapted to travel constraints? Accommodation. Is it comfortable? Meals. Are they adequate and adapted? 3. Quality of teaching material. Written materials, quality of documents. Presentation materials, adequate slideshows. Practical exercises, clear instructions adapted to the participants' needs. Trainers should also look at the quality of the logistical aspects. Bad meals, for example, can be detrimental to the working atmosphere. Never skip breaks. 4. Achievement of objectives. 5. To what extent are the goals and objectives of this training clear and understandable to you? And 6. Are the announced goals and objectives being met? More open-ended questions can be added. Your remarks, impressions, feelings, your suggestions for improvement. As a reminder, trainers can skillfully use break times to take the temperature of the group and reactively correct what is lacking in the training system or logistics. How to carry out the evaluation of satisfaction. It is most efficient to organize this type of evaluation in 2 stages. In small subgroups or even individually and without a facilitator. Then in large groups, plenary sessions, with discussions on the reports made by the subgroups. An alternative, in large groups, is to give a form to each participant and invite them to fill it in individually. It may be useful to specify that you are looking for their personal assessment of the different elements and to ensure that the questionnaires are anonymized to avoid possible censorship. In addition, the training must be part of an overall follow-up process. This implies the involvement of line managers in the implementation of elements presented during the training. So it is definitely useful to invite managers to attend and participate in the final evaluation. Unfortunately, managers are often present at the opening of a training session, but more rarely at the end of the training if you don't insist. Their involvement can be important to the follow-up and implementation of what has been learned. How to assess prior learning and its assimilation into daily practice. Assessing learning outcomes to evaluate the training method. As we have seen, when assessing satisfaction, participants evaluate the achievement of goals and objectives. This evaluation also makes it possible to identify the elements of both the training method, that is the choice of activities, adaptation of the content, etc., and the physical context, the premises, logistics, etc., that can influence the achievement of these goals and objectives. However, the evaluation of satisfaction is not sufficient to measure training achievements carried out on the spot. It does not provide sufficient insight to estimate progress more objectively. There are 2 other ways to measure the achievement of objectives. 1. Formal tests, such as written or oral. Test type, multiple choice, open-ended questionnaire, carried out before and after the training. The aim is to measure the progress of the participants skilled on the same subjects and content. 2. Self-evaluation. The participants themselves declare their progress in mastering the skills targeted by the activity before and after the training. This evaluation is carried out several weeks, sometimes months after the training. By taking a step back, the participants have a clearer perception of the skills they have gained. Training of trainers followed by coaching or by other group training, with time for implementation within the company followed by a return to the classroom. Always much better evaluation of real achievements. How to self-assess what has been learned. In order to capitalize on the evaluations, it is necessary to provide a written evaluation. If the evaluation is conducted orally, individually or in a group, care should be taken to record the answers obtained. Classically, the questions, written or oral, are as follows. In retrospect, how do you evaluate the learning achieved during the training? What are the main achievements at the end of this training? Do you feel that the objectives of the training have helped you to perform better in your job? Are you satisfied with the possibilities for using what you have learned in your workplace? What part of the achievements do you think you can implement in your workplace? Are you satisfied with the skills you have acquired? Are you optimistic about the possibilities of passing on the skills you have acquired? Comments, if any. This will also provide useful information to improve the training method. Finally, it's also useful to ask participants to assess their level of performance before and after the training. This should allow a better understanding of their perception of the progress made. Let's take the case of a training course with the goal. Participants are capable of driving a tractor in all circumstances. Self-assessment uses a continuum and participants are asked to determine their level of competency. In our example, the self-assessment takes the following form. For each objective, from your point of view, estimate your level of competency before the training and at the end of the training. 0 will signify not at all capable, and 10 will signify fully capable. Objective 1. Identify hazards when driving a tractor. Objective 2. Properly operate the tractor in the field with or without towed equipment. Objective 3. Choose the right trajectory according to the characteristics of the terrain. The same type of questioning can be used to ask training sponsors, such as the line manager, human resources manager, to assess the prior learning of staff members after the training. Evaluating the assimilation of knowledge. The challenge here is to evaluate, at the end of the training and after it, the effective implementation of learning in the workplace. This assessment is facilitated and carried out through 1. Definition of objectives for implementation. At the end of the training, participants decide on a number of objectives to be implemented in their workplace. These objectives are identified and formalized at the end of the activity. 2. Evaluation in the field. In an interview with the participant's line manager, verify whether or not the objectives for implementation have been achieved. Identify any obstacles that have emerged, such as the necessary conditions for implementations have not been met, available materials is not adapted to the new learning, change of assignment, lack of valorization of skills. How to evaluate the transfer of prior learning. Combined with prior learning assessment, the transfer assessment can be carried out by the participant together with his or her supervisor, ideally in writing. This assessment may take the following form. 1. Identification of the objectives for implementation formulated at the end of the course. Objectives for implementation. Indicate your objectives for implementing the learning in your workplace at the end of the training. As soon as you return, 6 months later, and 1 year later. 2. Levers and barriers to acquiring skills. What elements facilitated your implementation of skills in your workplace? What barriers have hindered your implementation of skills in your workplace? Why do employers enroll their staff in a training course? To take advantage of an opportunity, to make an obligation, as part of a company project? Are improved capabilities really expected? 3. Actions to facilitate the acquisition of skills. What concrete actions are proposed by the manager and the participant to continue the acquisition of skills and improvements targeted? The actions, objectives, and deadline. And 4, remarks and comments. This heading provides a space to indicate the conditions needed to carry out the actions and work towards the objectives, such as materials, financial, logistical advance payments. In addition, it may be useful to allow any expression of disagreement on the content of the assessment, such as regarding levers and brakes. Finally, this will also provide a reminder of what was decided and what could prevent the goals and objectives from being achieved.